Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Joined by my good buddy, John Schopp. He is also part of the Fans First Sports Network with his podcast, Spartan Pride. We are just a few weeks away from starting our 15th season together, doing this every week, doing media. Man, it's fun to be friends and to be able to share it. And each week we go around the NFL. We talk about topics that are NFL related, but certainly impact the Las Vegas Raiders. And the first one I want to talk to you about, first of all, Johnny, happy 4th of July. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. And yep, I went down to the scruff level just to mix it up.
You look good. All right, John, I want to get into Isaiah Rodgers is a Colts player that's been suspended. He placed a bet on a teammate's over-under rushing total. And we've talked about gambling, but we're going to get into some other forms of it that we haven't talked about. And I want to credit Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk because he's an attorney like you are. And he brought up that this is a bigger scandal than maybe people are realizing because it's not just betting on games. It's now using insider information to bet on games. And players know who's hurt, who's not hurt. They know the game plan. They know, hey, coach this week's going to go with a run heavy. So maybe take the underneath on some receivers or tight ends, whatever. And I thought Florio made a really brilliant point that, this should be a huge area of concern and why the gambling companies are working with the league. I saw another person say, well, what means a player still isn't betting? He's just having a family member use their phone offsite and getting an account. And that's true. This inside wagering is going to be a huge battle for the NFL to climb. Your thoughts?
Well, on the Colts situation, you like the confidence. Of course, you hate the discipline because there is absolutely no possible room for any active player, or I would propose anyone that wants to be an active player, say a guy on the street, a guy from a spring league, a guy who's in his final college season. You can't bet on anything directly. So this is a huge issue, and it is a credit to Mike Florio to really peel back and look at what's really significant here. When the Colts released a statement, it seemed a little bit obscure. It seemed like, are they overreaching here? No, they're not. If there's an appearance of an impropriety, you have a potential big problem. So the NFL's got to continue to work to do what it can to limit it. As far as the family member or associate that's betting on his own, on his phone, I'm not sure we can do everything to remove that, but putting parameters and guardrails in place to discourage it or keep it at bay is not going to be too difficult. If somebody makes an outstanding, outsized, outlier bet, I believe the gambling companies, just like they would at the casinos, they're going to open their eyes a little bit. When you go back to the horrific ATP scandals in tennis with match fixing, there were some outsized bets out of nowhere on, some first round event in Germany, huge action where there would otherwise be none that caught some people's attention. So when we're looking forward, if we see things expand from players to family or associates, that might be something to keep an eye out for. This is an issue that needs to have consistent attention. It's one, if anybody thought we were talking about it too much here, it looks like that's not the case at all. And again, we're just at the start of July. I don't know that this is done yet.
I agree with you. All right, let's talk about the gambling fallout because now it's really started to begin for the players.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're losing jobs, game checks, etc. And unfortunately for a lot of the guys that are getting released right now, their career is probably over. As we've seen in history of the NFL, and I think back to misguided decisions of a wide receiver, Mike Williams, to skip a year, Le'Veon Bell skipping a year in his prime. If you skip an entire year at the NFL, the odds of you coming back to play at near that level are very, very long. it just does not appear to be a sport where you can take that kind of time off and not really slip. So we are starting to see an accumulation of careers. And I think what we're seeing here from the Colts and maybe the Lions, but this is going to be the first real big example, is there's somewhat of a precedent being set. Some organizations are going to say, if you get busted for this, you're out no matter what. And that's an easy thing to say, but let's see what they do when there's a starter involved or maybe a key depth player, because I just hate to say it, but the numbers suggest that we're going to see that sooner than later. We're going to probably see that before the first week of camp. A significant name that we recognize outside of their home market is likely to get caught up in this. And then let's see what happens. But it looks like some teams are willing to set a precedent. Let's see what they do if they stick with it.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to explain it. The NFL has gone into bed with the gambling. There's no way to put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste container. And I think that for years they avoided it because they thought about people prior to Roger Goodell, Paul Tagliabue, Pete Rozelle. I think they thought about these type of things. I'm not a big fan of Roger Goodell. I think the right now the present mood in the NFL is who's going to give us money and we'll take it. And I think sometimes that's a dangerous place to be. I remember my dad once telling me, if you take a job just because there's more money and you don't go and look, what if there's more problems with it? Because we know there usually is, whatever. But I think one of the problems that they're now in bed, there's no getting out of this. And so trying to figure out how to police it, in my opinion, this is a completely NFL created problem. They own it. The league owns it. And to me, this is going to continue to become an even bigger story. I want to go to another one because there has been some crafting of an excuses. I believe, and you may disagree, I believe if the New England Patriots don't make the playoffs, I'm going to go a step farther. I'm not even sure if just making it is enough. But if they don't make it, I don't expect Bill Belichick back in New England. I don't know if even making it's enough, in my opinion, based on talking to people. But what do you think about this crafting of an excuse, Bill Belichick? A lot of people thought he threw shade at the owner, Bob Kraft. Your thoughts on it?
Well, it's interesting that it's getting pointed out in such a way. You know, historically, the Patriots have done as good or better managing the salary cap as anybody, but you're going back, some years now. So it's an interesting thing that comes up, how low the Patriots are in the cap. We know that they were active in free agency this year, but maybe not as active as they could have been. And also, there's still one large wide receiver out there that may be coming into play in New England. So I do think it's interesting. When I look at the Patriots situation right now, I circle back to our conversation about those rookie contracts and just how big a deal that is for them in dealing with rookie Mac Jones, who's their quarterback. So I don't look at the Patriots organization as one that's being frugal. I look at them as an organization that has spent dollars pretty smartly, pretty wisely on a consistent basis. And I don't know, but it seems to me like there's one guy pulling the strings of whether to spend or not, and that's Bill Belichick. I just can't envision a conversation where he's gone to Robert Kraft and said, this is what we need to get this guy, and they gave him the thumbs down. Now, in the same time, how long do you want to coach? I don't know. Bill Belichick has coached a long, long time. He appears to love the game remarkably intensely, always. I don't think he can get enough of it. So I'm not sure he's a guy that's going to ever come off the field. It'll be interesting if he does, because he's so reliable and so consistent that you barely ever spend any time thinking about him because he's so consistently there. He's been in the NFL for so many decades. it's hard to imagine a time when he would not be a coach. So let's keep an eye on this. Let's see what the actual starting roster is for the Patriots. I'm curious if Hopkins ends up in New England.
And I'm going to ask you point blank, if Belichick and Bob Kraft part ways, do you think Bill's done as a coach? Do you think there's other places that would give him an opportunity? I think there are.
Oh,
Do you think he would, but do you think he takes some money and runs to his boat? I just don't see it. I'd like your thoughts on it.
I would hope that he would take a season off if that's possible. I don't know if it is, if you love the game that much and there's nothing else you want to do. When I think of the Rolling Stones, these guys have more money than they could ever spend in their lifetime. They're 80, 75, 80, and yet they're still going and playing concerts and making records because that's the number one thing they want to do. It strikes you when you see them live. You're like, these guys could be doing anything in the world. This is what they want to do. That leads me to think that Bill Belichick will consider an opportunity anywhere and take it if he wants it, whether it's a home-based opportunity in Miami or one on the other side of the country. I don't think he's ever going to be done. I don't think he's ever going to be done. Maybe he takes some time off. That would be interesting.
All right. I got 2 rule changes I want to talk to you about because I think they're really big and not getting enough discussion. Failed 4th down conversions. What a rule change here.
The key is failed. And this is where I think the NFL might have made us stumble. Let's just review all 4th down conversions, not just failed and successful. So the big key on this one is the failed is going to have a reset clock. Failed 4th down conversions, automatic booth review, just similar to other turnovers that are automatically reviewed. Head coaches can't challenge a failed 4th down conversion. That should be fine. It's unlikely that somebody's going to screw up a review. The successful ones still require a coaching challenge unless they occur inside the 2-minute warning or during overtime. Okay. But what's strange is the clock is going to reset and add some time. If it's under 2 minutes, the play clock goes to 40 unless there's another deduction going on. Without it getting too convoluted, there's a little bit of monkeying with the clock here. The game clock issue, I think, is one that is going to come up at some point where all of a sudden, instead of being in a rush, somebody's got plenty of time. They got time to change people coming off the field. I don't know if the NFL slightly stumbles here. Why not just review all 4th down conversions? Very simple. Very simple, rubber stamp.
I'm old school. To me, don't inspect anything unless a coach throws a challenge. It's adding too much to the game. Dear God, football's the best game on the planet. It's the most popular game on the planet. Don't turn, even baseball realizes it was too long and sucked and they had to do something about it. To me, I think that I'm all for a coach having the challenge. Don't do these automatic inspections unless a coach challenges it. Just get the game moving. I hate it, but it's going to be interesting to watch. Then this instant replay reversal. To me, this is one that is not getting enough attention. It fascinated me the more I studied it. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this is the one really that's got the situation with the clock that you really want to pay attention to. So if an instant replay decision results in a reversal with under 2 minutes on a play, under 2 minutes, we assume in the half and in the game, the play clock's going to go back to 40 instead of 25, unless there's something else that requires a 10-second runoff. And if that case, they set it to 30. This, I think, is a big deal because we're talking about players can change. It can tie in with the 4th down thing we just talked about, but it also on its own. It's anytime there's an instant replay reversal under 2 minutes. The interesting curve on it is inside 2 minutes, reversing from a ruling with the stop clock to one with a running clock requires either a 10-second runoff or a charged timeout to that team. That's where this is going to become an issue. Somebody's going to be in a position where they don't have a charged timeout. The clock's going to run. They're not going to be able to basically kick the field goal or make the next play in order to try to tie or win the game. This is going to happen at the end of a game. Somebody's going to be standing out of luck and they're going to be not happy about it. And it's going to be this rule. that we're talking about right now. There is a hook on this rule. There is a curveball, and that is the reversal, stop clock to running clock, 10-second runoff, or you got to have a charged timeout. That's the scenario I'm looking for. When it happens, it's going to stand out, and people are going to say, oh, that's that new rule change. That's a little weird.
I just think they're hurting football, making it so bureaucratic. Ugh, I just hate it. I don't.
There really is something to the simplicity of the coach has this many challenges, period. There's also a simplicity of we're going to review all plays, or we're going to review all scoring plays and all turnovers. That's fine. We're going to review all scoring plays, all turnovers, all fourth down conversion attempts. That's probably the max. So I hear you. I'm with you. I think it's gotten better. I think it will continue to get better with some more technology that's going to come down the road to maybe make some of this stuff a little easier to calibrate. But you run a danger of overdoing it, of putting too many things in the recipe, of convoluting it, of stopping the momentum of the game, which is the concern you have, which is extremely justified and applies broadly across the sport. You have that being weighed with what's the best way we can have the fairest competition. So I give the NFL credit for trying to figure it out. I think they might have missed a little bit on one of these two key rule changes. But if we trust that they're going to continue to work on it, there will probably come a point where some of this will be drawn back and simplified, because simpler is almost always better when it comes to rule decisions.
I can tell you're the attorney and I'm the journalist. I hate it. Too bureaucratic. You love the minutia of the rules, man. I love you, Johnny. Listen, from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network, I'm Hondo Carpenter. My buddy Johnny Shop, also part of the Fans First Sports Network with his Sprite and Pride podcast. Thanks for joining us as we went around the NFL again this week. Thanks, Johnny.